What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and it's been a little while coming, but as promised, I'm going to teach you how to make a sort of plaque wall hanger display for anything you kind of want to hang up. For me, I'm going to be doing these two Drizzt scimitars that I picked up off of GameStop. I showed you guys these in a previous video, and I said I was going to find a way to hang them on the wall behind me, and I need to build something to do that as they don't come with any kind of stand. So I went out and picked up this wooden plaque off of Amazon for a couple bucks. I'll have a link in the description. You can really use any plaque. You can find some of these at your local hardware store. You can buy them off of Amazon, or you can really even make your own depending on what size and style you want. So before we head over to the shop and do this, by the way, it should be really quick. It's really just going to be drilling of a couple holes, and that's it. So the tools needed are pretty limited. I wanted to talk to you about the sponsor for today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online community for creatives where there's millions of different people using it for the variety of different classes, covering everything from things like actually woodworking to cooking to fine art, interior design, and so on. We talked about them before, and you know Skillshare, but it is a wonderful tool to use, especially while we're still living in a pandemic world where you can go out and take this time to learn a new skill or perfect or whatever the case may be. It's also relatively affordable. It is less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. And I wanted to show you one of the classes that I've been taking that I'm interested in right now, which is Grilling Fundamentals, Cooking Chicken Over a Live Fire by Zachary, it's Palacio. Anyway, I am now going to be 35, and I saw on a TikTok, when you're 35, you either need to get into smoking and cooking meats or World War II history. So I said, hey, let's make it cooking meats. So I happened to find this. I also learned a new term, which I think is hilarious and awesome. It's called spatchcocking. It's for cooking all the chicken on the same side where you kind of open it up. Never heard it. The word is super fun to say. Try it yourself, spatchcocking. Anyway, thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. There'll be a link in the top of the description where the first 1,000 of my followers to click that link will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium, the ad-free version. Thank you again, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Let's head over to the shop and get started. So first up, the most important thing is going to be the layout. So I've got the two scimitars here, and I have the plaque. So we have to decide, do we want to do kind of the traditional, which you see for wall hangers, right, with the sort of crossed swords? And then if we are going to do that, how far apart are they going to be spread on the bottom? You could even do it if you wanted, where they're sort of side by side like this. I don't think that that looks great, but you can do that if you want. So I think what we'll likely do, and again, I'm trying to do this one-handed, is something like that, roughly, where they're crossed, with not too much of a gap on the bottom. And then basically all we're going to do is figure out what layout we want, mark a couple holes, and then we're going to drill into our piece of wood and just install some dowels. It seems pretty self-explanatory, but we put one here and then one down here, and that sort of will lock our scimitar from moving. The only thing you need to do is make sure that you cut the dowel long enough that when you put the second sword on top, it sticks out far enough to hold it. So I marked down 5 holes to hold where the different dowels are going to be, so that'll be on either side of the sword, and then one in the middle to kind of keep them spread apart. We might need to put a 6th one down here, but I went and put a 1/4-inch drill bit, which should match the exact diameter of the dowels. So what I'm going to try to do with this is not drill all the way through, try to drill maybe 3/4 of the way through so that we can fill that internal area with glue and sort of pound in the dowel, and then pressure fit, and the glue should hold it in place. And then we should pretty much be good to go. The only thing I didn't do, which you may or may not want to do now, is figure out whatever fastening method you're going to use. You may want to drill a hole if you're going to mount it with a screw, or add a hanger or something like that to the back. I'm not really worried about that. We can always do that later. So I guess what we're going to do is attempt to drill the hole here. And I am trying to do this one-handed with my cell phone. So let's see how we do. We'll line our drill up right there, and then we'll just go ahead and start drilling. All right. right, as you can see, we have a hole. We can take one of our dowels, and it fits in there perfectly. So here you have it as it stands. The spread on the bottom isn't too much. I might have adjusted that, but I didn't have too much area to work with up here. Again, if you chose a different plaque, it might not be an issue. This, again, is something I got off Amazon, so part of the plaque right here, as you can see, broke off, so I'll just wood glue and attach that. But here's just what I ended up doing as far as these dowels. Because of the specific thing that I'm doing, I actually shaved down this middle post so it could slide inside this part of the scabbard. And another thing I needed to do was add some blocks there. Because this is resting on top, it needs to sit on top of that so that it's, you know, out straight. So here's what it looks like without any of the swords in it. I ended up not covering up that hole. I could put another piece of wood there if I wanted, or just fill it in with wood filler. You're not going to see it because it's behind the swords. And I was trying to hold it up with one hand and show it, so that didn't work. So what I ended up doing was drilling a 3/8 of an inch hole on the back, which you could probably drill bigger if you wanted, or, you know, whatever the size might be for metric, but this is just a standard wood screw, and it just sits in there. I just drilled a screw into the wall temporarily, hang it up on it, and here we go. It was, with one sword, it wanted to twist immediately, but actually, it's funny enough, with the weight of the two swords, it sort of holds itself where it needs to, and it actually looks pretty good. You could have spread the bottom, you know, spread the swords apart more. It depends on where you're going to hang it. Now, where I originally had planned to hang this in my new studio, I couldn't do that, have it spread out too far because I have that neon sign there. So I wanted to keep it a relatively, you know, limited horizontal profile. But yours, I got to imagine, will be way easier than this. These have two distinct kind of filigrees at the top of the scabbards. The hilts are, you know, the pommels are longer, so there's more weight or weird weight distribution. This, you know, Icing Death is like a flat, square, wide blade. Twinkle is kind of a rounded, almost thinner blade. So the profiles on these are way different. If you were going to hang two identical swords, it would be way easier. If you were just going to hang one sword in the middle, you could probably put two posts on either side of the crossguard and it would just hold it there. But not bad for really about 5 minutes worth of work between just marking and drilling out the holes. The only thing left to do is to just cut the posts short to the width I want. I don't need them sticking out way far like this. They only need to stick out just about as far as the swords themselves. So maybe about a 3-inch depth on them. Then I got to drop a little bit of glue in all the holes, sit them in, you know, tap them in lightly with a hammer. And then when that's all done, sand it. And then it's actually pretty much sanded already, so maybe just a little bit of sanding on the dowels, and then hit it with your stain or finish of choice, and then you're done. So I hit everything with 120 grit sandpaper just to clean up some of the edges, and actually there was a lot more needed to be done to it with us, like from the factory, not even the stuff that I did. Something else you're going to want to try to do is sand off, I've talked about this before, as much of the glue, or just be tidy with the glue, because that will stain differently than the actual wood itself. But I'm not really worried too much about it because a lot of it's going to be hidden by the swords. So this is my favorite, as you may or may not know, Minwax Special Walnut. This is what I use to stain everything, all of my woodworking projects. And this is just a pine, so this is kind of hard to do. I could have stained the backdrop before I put the posts in, but I'm just kind of, again, and I'm trying to do this one-handed, but you're going to go ahead and take a rag, a staining pad, a brush, whatever you prefer to use. Just apply the stain, cover all the sides, and then you're going to let that dry, and then once it's done, then we can, you know, hang it up and put the swords on it. Just wanted to showcase what I meant. Do you see how it's like very light right there? Those are areas where the glue was there, and I didn't sand all the glue off. Now, if you're smart, you'll have a wet rag, and you'll kind of wipe the glue off as soon as it's there, get all the excess off. If you don't, and you let it dry, and you don't sand it really good, you'll get spots like this. Now, normally, if this was a flat surface, I would sand the hell out of it with a random orbit sander, but because we have all these little posts we're trying to sand in between, we can't do that. We have to use a hand, you know, sandpaper and do it by hand, and it's hard to get in between all of these little posts. Let this dry for about a half an hour or so, and then it's time to put it up on the wall. And there it is, hung up. on the wall. So there you go, folks. They are up on the wall behind me. I think they look pretty good. I think any of the issues we might have had with the stain or blotchiness and things like that are clearly masked by the swords themselves, and it does what it needs to do. It presents them in a nice way. I got to use my favorite stain, and I think it looks pretty good. All in all, the total cost to do this was about $10, maybe $13. And overall time from start to finish, you spend less time working on the actual plaque than you do waiting for it to dry, right? Like I said, I'll put a link in the description to the plaque I bought. You can see underneath this D20 is one that it's a very wide plaque. I managed to get that at Lowe's. They had some plaques. If you were to go to a local craft store or something like that, like a Michael's or something, you might be able to find pre-designed plaques in different shapes and sizes. This one on Amazon happened to be shaped like a shield, so I thought it worked well. Then all you really need after that is a dowel of whatever thickness you like. That, again, was a 1/4-inch dowel, which was around $3 from, again, I think Lowe's or Home Depot. You'll need a drill with the appropriate sized drill bit to fit whatever the dowel you buy. So just make sure whatever dowel you buy, you have the right size drill bit. And that's it, right? You mark it with a pencil, you drill your holes. You could, if you even wanted, drill all the way through the back, so you don't have to worry about stopping halfway. Drill all the way through the back, and then just make sure you have it flush on the back, and you cut it to whatever depth that you like. And depending on the plaque you buy, certain ones of these pre-designed plaques already have the holes in the back to mount them. I had to drill one for this because it just had a flat back, but that was basically it. And then whatever stain that you want, if you even want to stain it, right? You could paint it with spray paint, you could paint it with acrylic or house paint of some kind. You could just leave it natural bare pine, or if you buy one that's a fancier wood, right? If you're able to find one of these plaques in a walnut or a purple heart or whatever, you could just do that. So this was really simple. I'm definitely going to be doing this going forward. I don't think I'm going to do something like that to hang the shield because, again, whatever the plaque that you'd be doing to hang the shield on, the shield will cover it. But like if I had, like I say, I wanted to hang, I don't know, like a master sword, right? That's a common sword a lot of nerds happen to get. If you don't have a scabbard for it, it would just be the plaque with 2 posts in the middle to rest on the crossguard, and the sword just hangs. There you go. These scimitars, again, were a very specific, unique situation where nothing matched up and they don't have a wide crossguard to be able to hold on to. So it was a very unique circumstance. So I don't think it's going to get more complicated than this. Anything with a traditional crossguard should be pretty easy to do. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you happen to go out and build one of these for yourself, I'd love if you tag me in it. And I'd love to see what you're doing and what you're hanging up with it. So thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me and the channel. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Remember, link in the top of the description for the first 1,000 followers to get free access to Skillshare Premium. And I will see you all next time.